Hassan.
Good morning.
And thank you for
good afternoon. Yeah.
taking time out of your busy schedule and coming here to New Art Exchange. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting us. That's the first thing.
And so I'll start by talking about asking you a question around the kind of spaces in between, because you're originally from Morocco.
That's right.
And was the place you were born was Larache?
Larache, yeah.
Larache
is a small fishing town, basically. And my parents came from the village. My dad came probably, I think, in the 50s, and they were, they couldn't read and write.
No.
So Larache was a great backdrop for me because I grew up by the sea,
Right.
barefooted. My dad came in the 60s, economy. And I always have big respect for them. For somebody coming from the village to end up somewhere in London,
Right.
being able to read and write. So the Larache was a very special moment in my life, in a sense.
And then arriving here at the age of 12?
Nearly 13.
London?
Yeah, it was difficult because we're talking 70s and we're talking like last century. So it was very difficult coming here, not speaking English, starting in the second year, almost the end of the second year. So it was trying to make friends, trying to understand, I suppose the British culture. Also, I was getting sent to an English foreign school in the morning to learn English, away from my secondary school. So from 9 until 12, I would go to foreign school, because all the foreign kids would go there, and then go to my secondary school after lunch, which meant by the time I got to the 5th year, every lesson in the morning I've never taken. So I never took biology or history or maths.
Wow.
So by the time I went full-time to school at 15, in the 5th year, I had to sit in the class and read Tintin books or stuff like that because I hadn't taken any of the classes, and for that result I stopped going to school at 15 and didn't take any exams and came out of 0 qualification, so I got no exam taken from school.
And did that in any way create a sense of urgency? Because in a place like the UK, or in the Western world, the examination system seems to define where you end up in terms of occupation. Did you, at any stage, start to think, what am I going to do next at this age, in this scenario?
I think, that came later. I think, and I'm probably speaking a lot of kids like myself, there was a career officer that you had to go and see. And one of the questions would be, what do you want to do after school? And most of my friends, including myself, would say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they said, you want to be an electrician or a plumber? And you say, yeah, okay. Whatever they said, you would just say yes, because you really didn't know. Because coming at that stage to London in the 70s, first thing we haven't even fitted in with the culture. So to understand what you want to do was miles away from your mind. So it was, that took time, really. That was sort of, there was stages of a journey to get to know what I wanted to do. Everything came quite late for me, in a sense.
And in terms of culturally settling in from the age of 13 to 15, 16, 17, when was the moment that you felt, when was the defining moment for you that you felt, I'm from London now? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, I think I suppose for me, when, I went to school, there was no Moroccan kids. I was the only Moroccan kid. The neighborhood I lived in, I was the only Moroccan kid.
Yeah.
My first 2 friends that I made friends with were 2 English friends that they grew up together.
Yeah.
And they had racing pigeons, so I got involved having racing pigeons myself. But I really always felt a misfit, because I used to go to their house, the food, the smell, nothing kind of fitted in. One of them was really nice with me and his family. It was kind of different for them to have somebody like myself come into their house and stuff. But I would say when it sort of happened, when I met a few friends from the Caribbean, because a lot of the kids thought I was mixed race, and the friends that I met, some of them came around the same time as me, so we all had a similar journey, and their parents came around the same time as my parents. So I would say that was the first time to be in the community that we had to stick together because we had a lot of racism and stuff like that, and that became like a family unit. So all of a sudden I'm discovering new food, new music, and new culture that felt closer to my culture, though it's quite different, but it felt closer to my culture, and that was a comfort feeling being with these friends. So that was the beginning of London. That would probably be like late 70s.
Yes. And the episode of engaging with music, fashion, art, and starting to now define culture and find your path as, I guess, first, second generation immigrant communities.
Yeah, so I think that's why I said it came in stages. There's a stage where arriving, trying to fit in, and then there was like, let's say there's a group of us, friends, and then it was like, okay, now we're moving into the 80s. We don't have places to go and eat, we don't have places to go and listen to music, we don't have people designing for us. So all of a sudden, there was a few friends that somebody go, I've got a sound system, I've got some vinyl, let's find a space, let's put a party on. And then within that, there's somebody would do the cooking, and somebody would sort of have a camera taking pictures maybe, and then somebody just starting to design. So this was really kind of built up from late 70s going into the 80s. So by mid 80s, there was this new, I'll call it a village within the city. And this is, Echo wrote a great piece about rap. He used to have a fashion label called Rap in the Shop. And for me, the piece he wrote wasn't just about being rap, it was about the backdrop of London in the 80s.
I see.
And that was really the beginning of, people started to do things for ourselves.
And was that part of the era of the Face magazine?
Yes.
And
so the Face, you had ID, and the Face, you had a guy, a very important stylist called Ray Petrie. Okay. He passed away, I think, late 80s, early 90s, and he was the first one to start kind of a moderation called Buffalo Boys, or Buffalo, I can't remember the name, but it's definitely got Buffalo in it. And he was the first person to get people of colour from the street to model. So Nick Kamen, I don't know if you remember Nick Kamen. He was from Ray Petrie from Buffalo Boys, and you had Tony Felix, who was a martial artist. You had my friend who was a street skater. Camilo was South American, and all of a sudden they started to get the front of Face magazine. And this was really new then. I mean, now it's different because you see people all different colours in modelling, but that was groundbreaking.
Because at the
to
time,
see us, people like friends or somebody who looks like us, doing a catwalk show or being on the front of a magazine, like the Face magazine, was a big thing.
And of course, art and culture was a really interesting space and continues to be. And in terms of finding yourself, finding identity, representing narratives and stories, how does the freedom of art and culture allow that in your practice?
Major, because it was something you have to get up and do something for yourself. You couldn't wait for somebody to do something for you. No. So that's what I was saying. In the 80s, it was really none of us made money. We all struggled. I was doing. I had the shop, trying to do a label, like a clothing label with it, and I survived. Never made money, but had the kudos underground and all the. And my friends doing hip hop or DJs wearing the clothing, and it went all the way to New York and Japan. I was selling, but we never really made money because we were struggling. We were like, and I'm talking me doing fashion, and there'd be another friend who'd be doing maybe music. Thank God for pirate stations, because that allowed us another outlet for music to be heard and be playing in clubs. So all this is from the 80s, like as you can see, if I'm talking about Pirate Station or a designer or somebody like Echo was the first generation, somebody who, for us, Echo was major because he was somebody who went to university and coming, being the head of Arena magazine, see a person of colour, this was like a big proudness. This was all in the 80s, that became, global after that.
And of course, Echo Eschen went on to become the director of ICA.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, that was a huge achievement.
That was I would say, there was stages, there's our parents come in the 50s, 60s, there's people like myself that came at a young age, and the first generation born, and it was literally like a step ladder for it to have this evolution of music, art, fashion, and it's still not easy. I'm talking, there's still a struggle, but it's great to see a person of colour on the football pitch than before, and you can see what happened recently with racism. So it's changed, but it hasn't really changed.
It seems to be going full circle even, and with all this divide recently with the Brexit vote, this divisive world we're in, the haves and have-nots.
I think it's got more worse than let's say 25 years ago. There was kind of a still how can I explain it? I suppose naivety about racism, and there was a bit more sensitive people to talk about racism, especially people from England. There was kind of a little bit of sensitive to say something about the colour or this and stuff. When it's totally open, it's like if everybody's the two sides have kind of gone very wide apart from each other in a sense.
So your work, in a sense, starts to ask a lot of questions. As much as it is colourful, as much as it is vibrant, as much as it has a popular aesthetic, it's also got many deeper layers to it. Tell us about the work you create.
I hope that the work does that, because when I started doing what's so-called art, I didn't know I was doing what felt close to me, around me.
Yes.
That now hopefully has more meaning than I expected. At that point in time. Really, when you see the film. The video piece of film.
Yes.
I didn't realise what I was doing. I was capturing all these people around me, or friends of friends, with just felt right. And then when I showed the film, I remember I had a friend from I think Denmark. She said to me, "How comes you don't take pictures of white people?" Which I have done. But I looked at my film, and I was like, okay. Wow, I've got a Jamaican, I've got Venezuelan, I've got a Brazilian, I've got a Nigerian, and that really it made me look at my work in a different way, because I'm capturing the journey, like myself, within the people around me. So that's and that really becomes, in my mind, they're pretty pictures. In my mind, I'm always thinking it's about documenting. It's like, for example, you have Malik Sidibe and all these big masters, studio photographers. That now when you look at their work, it's art, where then it was studio pictures, because people were going to have pictures, for family reasons and stuff. I had to have pictures for the memory and have them in the front room. And then you look at somebody like Malik Sidibe, you can see he's captured Bamako at a certain time.
Right.
So he's documented that era. It becomes, when you look at it now, you can see a picture. You can see, oh wow, that looks like it's in the '60s.
Yes.
It gives you a time. So there was that. So for me, what I was doing, my rock stars, I had to look at that, and I said, okay, for me, it's my way of doing this to document these people being scattered around. So I'm the next generation from those studios that have been moved somewhere, and it's my job to document these friends of mine being in that place, that coming from different parts. So hopefully long term will be even more important as a body of work than just having pretty pictures.
Okay, so let's talk about where we're at today, because we are in 2019.
2028 we're in.
2028. Well, you got me there.
2019. Yes.
2019.
Yeah.
And we're talking about sort of reflecting back to the 80s and jumping now into the space here at New Art Exchange. The title of the show is called The Path. It features Le Salon upstairs, the brilliant pop star series, the brilliant Dhaka Marrakechia?
The beat of Marrakesh. Dhaka means the beat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So Dhaka means beat.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of energy here. Let's talk about the aesthetic then. Because the aesthetic, how do critics or how do art people define the aesthetic of your work?
Well, ask them. I don't know. I think, firstly, I'm really happy to be doing the show here because it's more of my world. It's more where I'm coming from. you know, to speak about it quickly, it's a place that I'm hoping people would come and feel comfortable with the work, because I also used to be very uncomfortable to go to gallery museum. To define the work, really, this show is called The Path. The Path actually is taken from the title of an album by Ralph McDonald's, and it's an album that's on one side of the album. It's one track, and it's the evolution of African music. It starts in the land of Africa and it goes across the Atlantic to America. So you could see how, you know, as I say, you know, normally you have 8 tracks on an album. This is one track on one side. So I've taken that as a journey, because I have my journey with that, and the people in my pictures have that journey as well. I've kind of split the work in 2 different bodies of work. There's my Moroccan side, which is Dakan Marrakech, which is the beat in Marrakesh, and my rock stars, which is more me, London, and my influences from themselves, from what I grew up with. So really the shows wanted to be a journey for myself to show all the objects I design, and also we have the salon upstairs, which is really something for people to use, you know, they're welcome to take over and do, you know, comedy, talks, music, film, stuff like that. So really I'm giving sort of my journey in my art and what I've created over the last 25 years, and really trying to hope that people, everyday people, not just from the arts, can come here and see something. And that, for me, that's more important, this show, as to just for the art people. And this is, for me, you know, I want it to be that, but everybody's welcome. Yeah. I want Lisa, who's cleaning, to come, and I'm going to ask her to look and tell me what she, you know, I want to see what she thinks. So this is, you know, this is the kind of thing.
And that's the beauty of the work, in the sense that it engages on so many levels, in the sense it has this very cultural signature that's distinct to your practice, distinct to your imagination. I'm just looking at these images now with the framed, the framing with the tins and the reference to the Arab text that comes from Morocco. It has Atlas Auto.
Atlas Auto, yeah.
What is that?
It's a car paint from the 50s. They still exist now.
Wow.
You can see there's a Buick on the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the products, so my journey as an artist, you know, I've never thought myself being an artist first at the beginning. It was growing up in London, the conversation we just had.
Yes.
I had so much influence from different cultures, music, art, fashion, film, food, I mean, you know, traveling and stuff like that. But growing up in the 70s, 80s, probably in the 90s, when people asked me where I was from, let's say Morocco, the kind of caricature thing you'd hear is like, hashish, kaftan, tagine, the Sahara, camel. So that was the thing. So it was like, I wanted to do something that I felt wanted to be cool for my friends. You know, all these friends have introduced me to this culture. I had nothing to show from my side. So my first work in the 90s was really about Arabic products that I shot, and then I've just printed them on canvas, and to really, not thinking it's art, to just kind of share it with my friends that are graphic designers, graffiti artists, and, you know, people into sort of cultures, different cultures as well. And within this, I sort of started to do design using like road signs as tables and crates as stools, you know, things that everything that gets used in Africa and other countries, you always see a crate somewhere. People
That's right, yeah, there's always the crate.
So I put this together, and the idea was, it became like a salon with these canvases to invite my friends and play music and just have fun with it. So I wasn't thinking meanwhile I was taking these pictures. As I started doing a few shows with it was called Graphics from the Souk.
Right. Nice.
Some people started saying, "Oh, look, I meet Hassan the artist," and I felt very uncomfortable with the word "the artist" because I didn't feel I was worthy to say to myself an artist, because I didn't know if it was just a moment in my life, or it's just something. I didn't see it as an intellectual art in that kind of way. But within that, as I said, I was taking lots of pictures that I felt were more something more. I had to protect my pictures more than just going hanging anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was a journey, and it took a few years for me to become an artist. So talking about the products, because I'm using a lot of products in my work, labels and stuff like that, when I decided to print my first pictures of this photography body of work, I wanted to bridge that body of work into this new work, but I wasn't too sure, and it just something clicked in my thing for let me use the cans around the frames. It has the repeated pattern like the mosaics we have in the Arab countries. It has brands that people can see and identify with that are big and local, also something new. And that really was the journey. And then as I was doing shows, I started to find there's power within that to attract people, because if I'm showing females with the veils, and somebody come, they see Louis Vuitton, the British, they forget, they just see Louis Vuitton or Coca-Cola or something like that. So immediately there's a comfort situation with this.
That's interesting, because there's this stereotype that boxes and continues to marginalize people of color, even today in 2019.
Even more probably.
Even more so because of the rhetoric and the kind of divisive nature of politics, but also the expansion of perhaps digital communication, which allows for very precise untruths to influence people's minds. And let's talk then about social media, and let's talk about the gallery space, because there is this kind of I don't know, proliferation of image that's seen in social media. And then there's the gallery space in which the image arrives. What would you say remains important within the gallery space, and what would you say is important in the social media space? And is there a kind of complexity?
Well, this is a good question, because I've come from, from a time when I started doing shows, there wasn't social media.
No.
Like now. There was, I'm talking like my first show was in 1999.
Right.
So it was the thing. So it meant if you had a show in the gallery and you had 200 people come throughout the month, it means only 200 people have seen your work.
Right.
Where now, and I have to say, I have to thank the social media, because it made my work popular.
Amazing.
Because people share it, and it means, somebody can come and take a picture of that and share it with maybe 10,000 of their followers, or 50,000. So it's a different game. This is why I think a lot of commercial galleries are struggling. On top of this, I really admire the new artists and musicians, and filmmakers, because all these art forms, for example, if you talk about 70s, 80s, it was a very expensive thing to do. If you wanted to do filming, you need the sound person, the camera, it's a big thing. Now you just need one of these cameras, a laptop, and you can go make your movie. It's as simple as that. Same as an artist, same as a musician, laptop and the keyboards, you can, stay in your bedroom, make music. And you have things like YouTube and stuff, you have this outlet, you can get a following. So there's a lot of big stars that we never know on the commercial side that have big followings in social media. Talking about artists, I think there's a great moment now, I have a few artists around me, younger generation. A gallery is very far away from them. They take pictures, set up Instagram, create a following, create selling from there, create somebody taking interest, because now also the big companies are following Instagram. So, if they see somebody ahead, they jump on them. I just had a friend, Urias, which I'm a big fan as a photographer. He's an Instagram star. He uses Instagram to show his pictures, and he just had Hermes buy like 11 pictures of his for their collection, and he's winning awards and stuff like that. So when I've introduced him to galleries and stuff, there's a little bit of uncomfortable situation, because he's a sort of taking care of his business.
So how does the gallery compete or stay alive within this environment?
Well, I think something like yourselves here, art exchange. I mean, you're working with public. So for me, this is more important than the commercial gallery. It's a commercial gallery. It's a business gallery. So it's like what happened to record companies. They broke down like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So now, nobody buys records, you can go and listen. So the commercial galleries either have to readjust to what's going on. The social media is totally part of it. If they don't go with that, you see them falling behind. People like yourselves, I think it's more about, obviously social media is very important, but I think when I come work with spaces like this, I always think it's more important to have direct contact with the people than trying to leaflet or use social media. It's, you know, because you're about public people, so it's going to them and knocking on the door and making the effort to win and bring them here. Museums, they already have their things, but museums, again, it's another blueprint that their problem is trying to bring real people to the museum. That's why they have all these Friday nights and music. So they have a different struggle. You know, they might have the art people, but they're trying to get, you know, normal people coming to the door.
Right.
So each one of these things have a different situations.
And on that point of normalisation, my team here love you, Hassan.
And we love them. No, really, we have a great team. I'm not just saying because camera. It's been a pleasure working with them. Really, you know, now I realise I'm becoming old in the game. And we have a lot of experience. We've worked with lots of different teams, and we've had some great teams worked with, and definitely, you know, on the top of my list.
I think what my team were really heartfelt about was both yourself and Jenny, as a team, come to us with a narrative and experience that we have experienced ourselves.
Yeah.
And so they said they're just like us. They're normal.
Well, you know, as you said, Jenny's standing here with us. You know, so I mean, for me, you know, it's almost like a family-run business.
Yeah.
And always, when we work with people like yourselves, I always want to learn to see what can we make something better for us. Because with us also, it's about working with people professionally, delivering on time. You know, trying to step one step ahead, and trying to leave naturally, trying to leave something good behind with people. You know, because we are also people's people. So, saying that we have a small team, you know, for example, you know, for me, we just learn, and like, we don't have breaks. You know, here, like, you know, when it comes to a break, they sit down and have a break. So I want to take that back and see if we can do that, for example.
Right.
So it's been really a pleasure, and then to say I have to thank my team, because they've been, I mean, you know, without my team, there's no way we'll be able to deliver this like this or on time. So this is something, you know, I appreciate, you know, so I'm always sort of see both sides. You know, I have my team, and I'm trying to, you know, aware of that, and then I'm, you know, sort of pushed them to the limit. And then when we kind of come to working with a team like yourself, it makes it easy for us. So for us, it's been a pleasure being there.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here as well, Hassan, and bringing to us this exuberance, this, you know, the range of colours here, the shapes and sizes and scales, and the distinct nature of the work is a really exciting thing for our neighbourhood. And I'm really excited about the salon upstairs.
Yeah.
And seeing how that will unlock also local talent.
Yeah.
So those that are in the fringes, in the margins of being seen, will be seen here in this process. And so that, I thank you for bringing that.
Well, no, this is what I hope. I hope, you know, I hope that, you know, people, I really hope you get local people. This is be a big pleasure to have this coming in, because it's really for people like ourselves. And the salon is really, you know, I always say, once I walk away from it, it's for the people. And this is really, I suppose, your job to try to bring those people here and trying to, you know, trying to create a vibe for the space.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm hoping that too, and I'm sure it's going to happen. The team here are quite connected with the local
community
scene, you know, so the roots are strong, and the history is strong with the kind of root culture. But one project that came out of this was Everyday Heroes. It was stimulated by your concept, the concept that you put forward the voice of the unknown, but make them superheroes, like rock stars, in terms of how they're represented, how they're decorated even. But they're decorated in a way that captures the self. So the Everyday Hero project, we worked with a local artist called Richard Chung.
Yes.
He's emerging in many ways. He has a vulnerability, but I've seen a confidence come through his work in this process. What would you advise for the next generation then?
I mean, you just hit it on the head. I mean, Richard, for me, you know, meeting him is an amazing kid, and you could see he's talented. He's really passionate what he's doing about, he's used in film, which is, most people are using digital at his age.
Very much.
So I would say, what Richard is doing is the classic thing. I mean, you just have to get up. I'm coming from old school, so spoken about the 80s. My belief is just have to get up and do your thing. You don't wait. If you believe in something, you're passionate, and don't use the money or this. You just have to really get up. And I always say, sometimes people say to me, "Oh, we don't have the money," and I say, "Well, look, our parents came here and do 2 jobs to maybe buy a pair of jeans. It takes them 6 months to buy a pair of jeans, but the matter of fact, they've done 2 jobs." And I always say, go and find a job, and then in the evening, do your second job for yourself. So take 2 jobs. You have to work hard.
You have to work hard.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, Hassan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. Thank you very much for all the hard work that both yourself and Jenny have created to bring to Nottingham, Hyson Green, this exuberance.
Thank you.
Thank you
I'd say thank you to yourself, Melanie, Cindy, Greg, all the team. I can't remember all the names.
Yes, okay.
Even Lisa, I think. And I have to thank Jenny, and she's here with us because she's been really
Always
been driving the plane, as they say. And it's a pleasure being here. I'm not just saying it because we're on camera. Really, it's a pleasure. It took a minute to get here because we spoke about it a few years ago. So really, for me, I hope people enjoy it. So from when we were at this store, it's for the people, and I really hope people enjoy it. Thank you. No, really, thank you for this as well.